Hello, welcome to Double Ketchup Mondays.
Our mini episode of our podcast, Queer Cinema Catchup. And we kind of reflect back on the podcast we released this past Thursday, which was
National Anthem, directed by Luke Gilford and starring a bunch of people that I didn't look up previously that I wish I did, so I could say it right now.
But we should look. E. Lindley as Sky, Charlie Plummer as Dylan, Mason Alexander as our favorite Carrie, Renee Rosado as Pepe, Robin Lively as Fiona. And who is that, Joe?
Blake Lively's sister.
No, I thought it was the person from Teen Witch.
She could be both.
Blake Lively doesn't have a sister, does she? Are you serious?
That's Robin Lively's Blake Lively's sister.
Really?
Yes, which I forgot to bring up on the podcast. But we're not here to focus strictly on the Lively family. We're here to talk about National Anthem.
That's right, and to reflect back on what we said mere days ago.
Mm-hmm. Before we do a deep dive into this whole thing, Allison and I feel like we gave constructive criticism on this movie, but it's not to say that we
didn't like it.
We did not like it.
Get a backbone, that's entertainment, baby. I mean, I don't know, that's Hollywood.
I think it's interesting, as we discussed, there's so many positive reviews of this movie, and for us to be the only people to give negative feedback on it, I'm very surprised by it, so I just don't really know what's in the water and why it is so positively reviewed.
Yeah, but the reason we criticize anything is because we love movies, like you said. We talked about it on the podcast, so it's like a sports game for us where we want our team to win. We want to see the best version of the movie possible. Mm-hmm. And so we can't help but express what could have made it even better, you know?
I think we said on the podcast too is a little bit style over substance.
Yes.
Luke's background too is in photography, and it was really beautifully shot and beautifully set up, but then the story and the lack of emotional connection to the characters just made it not the most interesting movie in that sense. Yeah.
But I did just find this Hollywood Reporter article with Luke Gilford. He described National Anthem as a trauma-free queer cowboy love story, and I feel like that's true.
Which is interesting because on the podcast, you and Haley mention the lack of stakes or the lack of problems in the movie. And then one of you said, like, it's not that I want to see like a hate crime happen in the movie, but you set this movie in New Mexico where people maybe aren't as accepting of queer people. But the movie wasn't trauma-free.
That's true.
Yes, it's not like physical violence towards queer people.
Which I wouldn't want to see.
Which is not something I want to see, but it's like a movie you have to have conflict. So you can't have a montage, which is kind of what this movie was. But then when there were moments of conflict, it was really confusing, especially because we talk about Robin Lively, the mom character, there was a lot put on her shoulders where at first it seems to be homophobic or queerphobic or transphobic. And then all of a sudden at the end of the movie is all accepting. So it's like she has to both be the homophobe and the all accepting, understanding mother. And we can't track that journey. It's hard.
All written off screen.
It's all written off screen.
It all happens off screen, pretty much.
Also, Charlie's character, if at the beginning of the movie he doesn't understand the shape of his queerness, if he doesn't understand that at the beginning, he doesn't know. And then at the end of the movie, if he still doesn't know, that's also okay. But you still have to like let us in and be like, I don't know, and that's okay, is what you said.
Yeah, I think that would have been a really powerful arc, especially because I think we were like, what is he? Is he gay? Is he bi? Is he fluid? Blah, blah, blah. Is he trans? And it's not really about the label necessarily. I think it could have been really powerful, in fact, to have a story where it's not about the label. But I just didn't feel like I got access to the character journey and what he had learned about himself by the end. I'm stuck on the mom post-viewing because I do think he was positioned between a woman, Sky, his love interest, who was portrayed as perfect, and then his mom, who initially was portrayed as sort of a villain. And I found that a little troubling and a little interesting of a juxtaposition, especially because he didn't seem to have many character flaws himself. And I was also struck, and I don't know if you've thought about this anymore, but the similarities of the ending and the mom's monologue to Call Me By Your Name.
I don't really remember the ending of National Anthem, honestly. I remember the ending of Call Me By Your Name.
National Anthem. Charlie Plummer's character is staring off in the distance at his former lover who he's basically broken up with. And he's crying, but he's also kind of smiling. He's sad, but he's very glad he got to have this experience and know what these feelings are like. The end of Call Me By Your Name. Timothée Chalamet hangs up with Armie, whatever hammer, and then he goes to the fireplace. He's crying into the fire, and then he's smiling because he's so fortunate he got to have these experiences.
I mean, I didn't really notice it, honestly, but now that you say that, it does strike me.
It's exactly the same. Exactly. It really, I don't know why this is bothering you more.
It wasn't earned in this movie, is more what annoys me. But I feel like if movies want to steal. Art's there for stealing.
I agree with that idea, but it needs to be better if you're going to do it. The very best movies will pay homage or steal from another movie, and when that happens, you feel things, you get excited because you recognize the scene, and maybe that's what he was going for. Instead of me being like, oh my gosh, this is a callback to Call Me By Your Name and feeling these feelings, but it's like, oh, that reminds me of Call Me By Your Name.
Right.
That was a better movie.
Yeah. And something, too, is in Call Me By Your Name, both parents are in the story, and it's interesting, we talked a bit, the director Luke Gilford, he has experience with the rodeo growing up, right?
His father
was really involved in it. And so it was really interesting in this movie, it's like, why choose to have a mother figure and no father figure?
So I was thinking about that more. So this movie is based on a monograph that Luke created, and he took all these photographs of the queer rodeo. It said his father was involved with this when he was a child. It didn't necessarily say his father was around growing up, so perhaps that was true, what we saw, but at the same time, I feel like his absence was conspicuous in that it did not feel to me that it was impacted the rest of the story, except for that small line at the end where both of us thought that perhaps the father was also queer and had run away from the family, which I think would have been very interesting if that was the case.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea.
But then comparing and contrasting it with another movie we just saw, Dee Dee, where the father is absent, and that I feel hangs very heavy over the entire movie. And I don't know how they were able to pull that off, whereas I didn't feel like in National Anthem it felt like a ghostly presence. And maybe it has to do with the age of the character.
As a viewer, I always felt like I was always on the outside of these characters. And we talked about the word you coined.
I'm worried that this is going to get me in trouble. The shy, soulful, tortured twink.
The shy, soulful, tortured twink.
I just think it could be a new trope.
What's unusual, though, is that the star of this movie is a shy, soulful, tortured twink.
Yes, that was a good way. That was an interesting. That did make me think.
Usually,
about
a manic pixie dream girl is the
supporting
character, and so yeah, I think we also had questions of why is this man the protagonist of the movie? Why isn't Sky the protagonist? It was just like really confusing, and we were left wondering, like, what were they trying to say with this movie? Like, are you just showing this to juxtapose queerness with Western Americana, or
yeah?
What?
Maybe it was just as simple as there's space for us everywhere, or we are not incompatible with old ideas about the West or masculinity or whatever it might be, and those are beautiful ideas. We didn't get very deep into those ideas. We just kind of
it always kept us at a distance.
Level. The tone was very serious throughout. There wasn't a lot of levity, even though it's supposed to be a movie about joy in a way.
Yeah.
You know, even the fun scenes they felt very artistic and weighty. But it didn't have that joy. I guess the rodeo scenes kind of did, but there was not a lot of dialogue.
Kind of, but even then it was like there were montages happening of like, look at all these like queer people, and it felt more like is it called a monograph?
Yes.
Okay.
I still don't
just
really
felt like
understand what a monograph
I think
is.
it's like a photo show is what Haley was saying.
Yeah, but then you could buy it on Amazon, so I'm still a little confused.
Well, it's probably the collection you can buy on Amazon from the show.
Okay. Wow. We're really negative right there, even though Joe started this off by saying, let's not be so negative.
With all the negative things that we have to say about this movie, I'm still glad it was made, and I feel like it'll be a stepping stone for all of them on the next project they make. And
totally.
It's always moving the needle forward in a positive way.
Always. I feel that can't be true. Every movie is always moving the needle forward in a positive way.
For queer representation.
I feel like there could be reductive examples of that. You know, like the criminal
there's like
lesbian trope or
and
now it's kind of people are more aware of these things, so they create art that kind of speaks back to that. But I do think that there was a time period where representation was out there, but it was not necessarily. It was maybe creating and reinforcing certain stereotypes that were harmful.
Like Silence of the Lamb could be another example where one of the characters in that movie had a problematic trans representation in it. So yes, not all movies, but I wouldn't call Silence of the Lamb a queer movie.
I feel it's sort of open for debate because of the problematic character at its center.
Yeah. I guess the idea of otherness being a qualifier for being wrong or evil.
But then, actually, I'm going to go back on what I said and say the fact that we can even kind of look back on those things and talk about them and correct and reimagine our cultural understanding of identities, I think is a powerful thing that wouldn't be possible if there was no representation. So maybe it is all moving the needle forward. Culturally, I don't know.
You heard it here first.
So we've gotten into a very...
Saying the word reimagine, at the Olympics, women's volleyball was happening, and two countries were arguing with each other on the court.
Oh.
And then all of a sudden the DJ starts playing Imagine by John Lennon, all the women just like started like smiling and just seeing how like ridiculous the situation was. And then everyone in the crowd started singing Imagine together, and it was like a really beautiful moment.
I missed this entirely.
I just saw the clip last night. It was really like heartwarming. The medals at the Olympics, they use bits of the old Eiffel Tower because it's like slowly replaced over time, and they save all the metal scrap for it, so it's being placed in the awards.
Always or just this time?
Well, just specifically for the Paris Olympics. I don't
Wow, you really
apparently,
learned a lot.
For the LA Olympics, there are plans, I don't know if this is true, for Tom Cruise to zip line from the Hollywood sign to Griffith Park. Is that right?
I mean, I believe it's going to happen. That makes sense to me. I want to go on the zip line.
Where will we be once the LA Olympics are happening?
I don't know. I really don't know because, as we've talked about many times.
Will we be in LA? I'll be in LA. Will you be in LA?
I don't know. I need some seasons. But if our podcast takes off, then there probably will be.
There's a lot of weight on this podcast. Is there anything else you want to bring up on Double Ketchup Monday? I took a Waymo, a self-driving car, and it was thrilling, and I felt like I was on a Disneyland ride where death could be one of the options.
I don't have any exciting stories this week. Did I do anything cool? We're going out to a cool restaurant. My friend, she is a connoisseur of restaurants.
This is what Allison got, and this is what I got. Does it look good? Let us know. Please subscribe to this channel, like this video, comment, engage, listen to our Apple podcast, Queer Cinema Catchup. Please do these things so our podcast can take off and Allison will stay in LA.
Good night. Bye.
Good night.